Hi, good evening. Somebody there?
I'm here.
Okay, great. So we're gonna do something else tonight, right? Because we have Tisha B'Av. So there are certain things that you're allowed to do, and one of them is the laws of excommunication. So we're gonna take a look at that. Yeah, so we'll start with this one. We're doing the Rambam here. So it says here like this. Uh, hmm, 1 second. Yeah, yeah. Let's put the Facebook on. Okay. So here we go. חכם זקן בחוכמה וכן נשיא או אב בית דין שסרח. Right, so it says, if you have like a big rabbi who knows a lot of Torah, also if you have a president, right, president of the court, or it could be also a king, or ab beit din, or the leader of the leader of the court, shesarach. So if they did something wrong, right, en menadim oto, we don't excommunicate him, befarhesia, in public, leolam. We never do it in public. Ela im ken, unless asak Yerovam ben Nebat v'chaverav. Unless he did something like Yerovam, right, which was what? He brought idolatry into Israel, something very severe. But he says, if he did some other sins besides bringing idolatry into the world, right? So then he says we lash him in private, not in public. As it says, the verse says, right, that you and your prophets have stumbled in Hosea. So it says, even if you stumbled, right, somebody who's your leader, like this, big rabbi, whatever, prophet, God knows, right, do it in a hidden way. Don't expose it. So they tell him, you know what, be respectful and sit in your house. Oh, so this is also any Torah scholar, right, that's liable to excommunication. The beit din is not allowed to excommunicate him right away. It says we run away from this, try to stay away from it, right? Not to do it. So we try to keep away from him, right? In other words, not to get involved. So it says the pious rabbis, right, used to praise themselves that they never voted or whatever, or right, to excommunicate a Torah scholar. So we see, right, that we should try to avoid this, excommunicating a Torah scholar. Not a good thing to do. As we said, right, unless he's doing some very big sins, then it's something else. We're not talking about that. But if he did something, by the way, some kind of a sin, it's I mean, he really deserves it, but the fact, because of the honor of his Torah, we don't give it to him, unless we said, right, that he did something very, very wrong, like Yerovam ben Nevat, brought idolatry into Israel, something very severe like that. Okay, so that's that. And then he goes on, the Rambam here, but he says we do lash him if he's liable to lashes, right? Obviously today we don't administer lashes to anybody, right? All the more so to a rabbi, we don't administer lashes. But in those days, when they had lashes, this was the policy, right? So it says even rabbinical lashes we can give him, right? But as we said, if you're doing it to somebody who's a Torah scholar, you should do it in a quiet way, right? Not to, make a public spectacle out of it. Okay, very good. That's the way it starts out, this Rambam. Then he goes on. Gets out to nidui, right? So the question is, right, how do you excommunicate, right? If you're interested in doing that, how do you do it? So he says, right, Omer ploni yeh b'shamata, right? So he said, right, this person should be excommunicated. Shamata means excommunication. Ve'im nidu b'fanav, Omer lo ploni zeh b'shamata. But if you're right, if he's there, present in the place, then you say, this person, right, isn't excommunicated. What about the cherem, right, which is even more severe? It's like a ban, So how do you do that? Omer lo ploni muchram, right? You say this person, right, is banned. Ve'arur bo ala bo shvu'a bo nidui. So what does this mean? That Arur means cursed, right? So in that word, there's an oath, there's a curse, and there's also excommunication. So the word Arur includes all of them, right? Can you imagine? It's a pretty, right? So when you say Arur, you're pretty much giving him the whole, the whole rap sheet all in one, right? So I guess it's pretty nasty. Okay, that's what the Rambam says. So, ketzat matrin and idui ocherem, right? So the question is, it says the Rambam, how do we, right? Once you put somebody in excommunication or ban, how do you bring him back in, right? That's the question. Omerlo tells him, sharui lecha, right? Machu lecha, right? It's allowed to you. In other words, you're back in. We allowed you, right? That's what we tell him. Or machu lecha means like you're forgiven, right? We forgave you. So it says if they allowed him, right? If they brought him back in his absence, right? He wasn't there. They can do that too. So then he says, Omerlo tells him, Ploni sharui lo machulo. We say like that, right? This guy is forgiven, or he's right. He's permitted. So we can do it whether he's there or not. That's not the issue. Whether to excommunicate him or bring him back in, either way, even if he's not there, we can do it. Okay, good. Right? So the question is, right, what does the person who's excommunicated, how does he have to behave, right? What's his punishment? What's his predicament, right? So it says, "Menudeh asur lesaper ulchabes ke'aver kol yemei niduyo." Wow, that's what it says, right? Unbelievable. He's not allowed to shave, right, or to do laundry, right? Just like a person who's in mourning, right? So he has some elements of a mourner when he's excommunicated. The enemy is amanin alav, right? And also we don't do zimun, right? You know what's zimun, right? When you do Birkat Hamazon, right? You have 3 people, right? Or 10, a quorum of people that you bless Hashem there. So he doesn't count in that, right? He doesn't belong there. Also, we can't count him in a minyan, right? So if he comes to shul, he doesn't count in a minyan. For everything which requires a minyan. Also, you're not allowed to sit with him, right, within 4 amot of where he is. Right? So, but, right, even though he's banned like this, we're excommunicated, but, he is allowed to teach others, and also others can teach him. In other words, he can study Torah. He's not banned from studying Torah. But, right, as we say, he doesn't count in a minyan. He doesn't count in a zimun. So it says if he died like that, if he passed away, right, while he was excommunicated, I don't know. So the bet din, what they do is they put a stone on his coffin, right? Kamar, mean to say, shen rokaminato, right? That they're stoning him, like as if the fishahu moved dalbin atzibur because he's excommunicated from the community. Then sarich she'en maspidinoto, and for sure, right? We're not going to eulogize this guy, right? That's for sure. He doesn't deserve any eulogy. Then melavin at mitato, and also we don't do a levaya. We don't escort him, to the grave, right, like other people, right, which is called the funeral procession, right, whatever. We don't do that procession thing. So this is all the stuff that a person has when he's excommunicated, right? It's pretty nasty. Yeah. So now don't ask me, right, why are we learning such nasty stuff tonight? Because it's Tisha B'Av. We can't learn happy things, right? That's the whole point. That's the idea. That's why we're learning this. Okay. So, Yoter alav amuchram shenon shoneh leacherim. Oh, so he says, but the person who's banned, right? As we said, banning is even worse than excommunication, right? It's a higher level of punishment there, right? So, how is it more severe than excommunication? So sheno shoneh leacherim. He can't even teach other people Torah. Ben shonim lo, and also we don't teach him. But he can learn by himself, right? So we allow him to learn by himself, but he can't get into a group study, right? You can't do that. Shelo yishkach talmudo. So what's the reason why we allow him to learn by himself? So he shouldn't forget his Torah. Also, he says a person who's in a ban, right? He can't be hired by somebody, and we don't work for him. So in other words, we break off all kinds of work relation with him. Then nosin v'notrin imo, and also we don't bargain with him, deliberate, right? Deliberation, all kinds of stuff like that. Then mitaskin imo ela me'at esek kedei parnasato. So he says we allow him to do a little bit, to make some money. So in other words, we allow him to, to stay above water, to stay afloat. But beyond that, right, we don't want him to go beyond that. Okay, good. Goes on. Mish yashab benidui shloshim yom. Oh, look what he says. Incredible. So he says a person who was already excommunicated, right, for 30 days, but lo bikesh liatiro, he didn't come, right, to apologize, right, to permit him back in. Minadino to shniya, they excommunicate him again. Right? We do it one more time. Yashav shloshim yom macherim, if he sat another 30 days, right? But lo bikesh liatiro, and he didn't accept, he didn't ask to be allowed back in. So then we put him in a ban. So that's the next stage, right? Twice they excommunicate him, and then the third time they ban him. Okay, very good. So, bekama matirin anidui or cherem. So the question is, right? How many people do you need to forgive this person, right, from his excommunication or ban? So it says, Bishlosha, you can do it with 3 people, afilu hedyotot, even like, people who are not expert judges, right? Today we're not expert judges, none of us are. But if he's an expert judge, he can do it by himself without 3 people, right? So he says the disciple can also, right, do this to do to forgive him, even in the place of the rabbi. That's interesting. Okay, so goes on the Rambam. So says the Rambam like this: Shlosha shenidu v'halchu lahem, right? Let's say 3 people, like, excommunicated somebody, and then they left that place, right? They went somewhere else. V'chazar zeh midavar sheniduhu, and this guy now, right, did tshuva. He repented, right? So he wants to be now allowed back in, right, into the fold. Right, says Biglalo. So since those 3 people left, now we can get like 3 other people, right? And they can bring it back in. So if he did teshuvah, we allow him back in. Right? That's the thing. Even if the original people who did that, the nidui, right, are not there now. We bring 3 other people. That's the idea. Okay, very good. Let's go on. So it says, Mi shelo yada, mi shenidahu yelech lo etzel hanasi, v'atir lo niduyo. Wow, incredible, right? Let's say if a person doesn't know, right, who excommunicated him, so he doesn't know who to go to apologize, right, to whatever, to repent. He doesn't know who to go to. So what does he do? So he says, let him go to the Nasi, right, who's the president of the court. He's the leader of the people, and he can allow him back in, right, even though it's unknown who excommunicated him. Interesting. Let's go on. So it says, Didui al Tanai. What about right, excommunication on condition, right? Afilu al pi atzmo tzarich hafara. So he says, even by himself, right? It requires to be opened up. It requires to be forgiven. So what do you see from that? That a person can also do nidui, excommunication, on himself if he wants. He can do that too. So, right? So he gives you here an example, right? What happens over there? Let's say a certain Torah scholar, right? Rabbi, whatever. Right? He excommunicated himself. And also, like he did it on a certain condition, you know? Something that is obligated for excommunication. So he can open it himself. In other words, just like he put himself in, he can also bring himself out. That's incredible. Okay. Very good. Misheniduhu b'chalom. So interesting, right? He says, what about if a person sees a dream that they excommunicated him in the dream, right? What happens with that? Afilu yada minidau. So it says, even if he knows who excommunicated him, tzarich asara bnei adam sheshonin halachot de'atiro b'niduyo. Wow, look what it says, right? You need 10 people who study halakha to let you out of that. ואם לא מצא טורח אחריהם עד פרסה, so if he doesn't find people like that, he should go until a parasa to find them, to look for them, right? What's parasa? That's like the time that it takes to walk 72 minutes. So he has to go that far to look for people. Lo matzah, if he doesn't find it, what does he do? Right? Then matirim lo afilu asara sheshonim mishnah. Then he can also use people who just learn mishnayot, right? Not on the level of halakha. What's the difference between a person who learns halakha and a person who learns mishnah? Right? Really, they're all halachot, right? Mishnah is also halachot, but halakha is more like practical stuff. That's current stuff, practical halakha, and mishnah is more like theoretical, more in a sense. Not exactly always halakha like that. So therefore, right, it's a little bit of a lower level. That's what he's saying. If he doesn't find even people who are learning Mishnah, then he can even find people who are learning, Bible, right? Bible learners. He doesn't find that, he can even use people who don't even know how to read. Right? What does that mean? They can't read the Bible. If you can't find 10 people, then you can use 3 people. Interesting. It goes on the Rambam. Mishanidu befanav en matirim lo ela befanav. So it says, right, that if they excommunicated him in his presence, they should also open him in the presence. נידו שלא בפניו, מתירים לו בפניו ושלא בפניו. But if they excommunicated him, right, in his absence, then they can bring him back in, whether his absence or his presence. ואין בין נידוי להפרה כלום, אלא מן הדין ומתירים ברגע אחד. So he says there's no difference between, right, putting him into excommunication and taking him out. Meaning what? That it's all like 1 second, you know, it just takes a second. There's no big ceremony there, no big issue. אלא מן הדין ומתירים ברגע אחד, כשהחזור נודן למוטב. So when do we do that? When do we allow him back in? Once he does tshuva, right? When he stops doing his sins, so then we allow him back in. Okay. ואם ראו בית דין להניח זה בנידוי כמה שנים, so if the בית דין, right, thought it proper to put this guy in nidui for several years, right? Manichin kefi rish'o. So he says, we do it, right, according to his wickedness. In other words, because according to his sins, right? If he's really a big sinner, this guy, right, and they want to put him in for a few years, they can do it, no problem. וכן אם ראו בית דין לאחרים לזה, לכתחילה ולאחרים מי שיאכל עמו ושותה עמו, and also, right, if the beit din sees proper to ban this person, right, put him into a ban, right away, you know, without any delay, without any intermediary stages, right, whatever, and also to ban anybody who eats with him and drinks with him, ושותה עמו, או מי שיעמוד עמו בארבע אמות, or somebody who will stand in his four amot, מחרימין כדי לעשרו. So we do that, right, in order to punish him, in order to chastise him. וכדי לעשות סייג לתורה, and also to make a fence for the Torah, right, meaning what people should keep the Torah, right, to make people a little bit scared, right? עד שלא יפרצו החוטאים, because we don't want the sinners to, you know, get out of hand. So he says, even though the rabbi, right, now we're getting to a different stage, right? Until now, we're talking about a bet din, right, who does excommunication for a certain reason, right, because of a certain sin that a person did. But now he talks about a Torah scholar, right? A Torah scholar, says the Rambam here, right? He's allowed to excommunicate somebody because of his honor, right? If they defamed his honor, he's allowed to excommunicate them, right? So even though he says it's allowed to do that, but he says, but he says it's not praiseworthy for a Torah scholar to do things like this, you know, to excommunicate people for his honor. So he says, what's the proper thing to do? Even if people are like, you know, scorning you, you know, and bothering you, right, harassing you, just, you know, like, ignore them, right? Like they don't exist. You should try to do that, you know, as a rabbi, right? In other words, don't take them so seriously, these people. That's the proper thing to do. Kenyan Shamar Shlomo, like Shlomo said, b'chokhmato, his wisdom, he says, send Kohelet, right, over there in Zayin, Kaf Aleph, Gam lechol hadavarim asher yidaberu al titen libecha, right? So it says, all things that they'll talk, you know, don't pay attention to it. So it says this was the way of the original, you know, pious people, right? Of your they used to hear their disgrace and they wouldn't answer you, right? In other words, you come to insult him, he's not going to insult you back. You know what I mean? He's just going to be quiet. He's going to be silent. Not only that, right, but they would forgive him also. A person who disgraced them, you know? Okay, forgive him, you know, he had a hard day at work. He was in a bad mood, you know, so he said something he shouldn't have said. Right? Something like that, right? So it goes on. So he says the big rabbis used to praise themselves. You know what? They never excommunicated anybody for their honor. That's what they used to praise themselves like that. So it says the Rambam, this is the way of the Torah scholars, right? You should go like that. If you want to be a Torah scholar, then go in this way. What does that mean? That be forgiving, even though they insulted you, right? So it says the Rambam, when was all this said, right? Or whatever we just said. That's only when he disgraced him, in a private setting, right? One-on-one setting, you know what I mean? Just you and the bad guy there, right? The rabbi and the bad guy. So that's okay. You can forgive him, when it comes to that. But if they disgraced him in public, right? He's not allowed to forgive them on that. So there, the rabbi is not allowed to forgive on that. That's the thing, right? So it's not only that, if he forgives them, he's punished. Right? Why? Because it's not your personal disgrace here. It's your disgrace of the Torah. So, it's not a personal issue here. It's an issue of disgracing the Torah. Right? So what does that mean, by the way, in public? How many people do you need there? A minyan, right? If you have a minyan there, that's already public. Right? So there, you're not allowed to forgive. So he says, as we said, right, if he forgive, yeah. So what should he do in this case like that? He should, avenge his honor, Don't forgive the guy. Like a snake, who was, annoyed by somebody, he starts like hissing, wants to bite him. So he's got to be like that, the rabbi, in a case like that, right? Like a vengeful snake. Until he until he begs forgiveness, right? To ask for forgiveness. So then you forgive him, right? After he asks for forgiveness. But until that point, right, you got to take revenge on him until he gets punished, for his sin, right? So it's a whole discussion, by the way, in the what do you call it? In the Rishonim, right? Regarding what does this mean, right? This rabbi is supposed to be like a snake and be vengeful, right? So the accepted opinion, there's several opinions there. One means that you should actively take revenge, But the more accepted opinion says like this, you don't have to actively take revenge from him. What you do is, just wait till Hashem punishes him, And then, right, remember that this was the reason why he got punished. In other words, mark it down your calendar, So don't forgive him until Hashem punishes him. But you yourself don't need to punish him. You know what I mean? That's not necessary. Okay, good. So we're done with this chapter. I think there's also another chapter that we need to do. So we'll go to that one. Let's see what we got here. Maybe we'll go to a different thing here. Yeah, so we'll do something in laws of mourning. So it says here the Torah. Misha met lo met, right? Somebody who died, somebody died. Who and it's like one of his relatives. So he has to mourn for them. Like we're going to explain, right? So he says, right, that you're obligated to make a rip. We have to rip your garment when one of those people dies, right? Who's a close relative of yours. Wow. So it says if he doesn't rip, right, his punishment is death from heaven, right? Heavenly death. So again, right, he says that another thing, which is that he has to tear when he's standing. If he did it sitting, Rabbi says, he fulls obligation. Also Rabbi Alfa says like that. The Rif. Okay, let's see Bit Yosef here on this one. Yeah, says Bit Yosef. Regarding what we just said, where's the source for this? But Siman Shin Aydalad, right over there, and Katab, he writes over there, Al Ezek Rovim Mitabrim. So on laws of mourning, right over there, he writes which relatives that we have to mourn for, right? There's 5 of them. I'm sure you can think of which ones they are. Right? We have basically the father and mother, and then we have the brother and sister, and we have the child, right? That's pretty much
the child, not the spouse.
Right, the spouse. I'm sorry. Yes. The child is a little bit different. Yeah. The spouse, yes, for sure, right?
What about the rabbi?
So there are rules about that, but it's not one of the 5. There are rules about rabbis. There are certain things that a person is obligated to do for a rabbi, especially if it's his rabbi. You know what I mean? But it's not the same level as one of these relatives. So I remember, for Maran, I made the tear for him because he was our rabbi. We took him very seriously. So yeah, we did. I lost one shirt. I lost my shirt. No problem. No big deal. Also, when I went to the Kotel last year when I was in Israel, I also made a tear over there because of the Qurban, right? Which is what we're talking about today, right? The Tisha B'Av, what we're dealing with today. So also, when you go to the Kotel, you're supposed to make a tear there. But they say, that for another rabbi who's like not your rabbi, it says in the books that nowadays the custom is not to tear. And the reason is because, it's going to come to bring like a argument with people. Well, is he really such a big rabbi? You have to tear for him. You know what I mean? Like they're going to start comparing one rabbi to the other, weighing each one on the scale. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, well, this rabbi, you got to tear for him. But I don't know about this rabbi, it's going to start becoming like a circus. So because of that, they say now the custom is not to tear for a rabbi, that passes away, even though the truth is you're obligated to do that. So yeah, there are some rules like that, but here, it's more severe. These 5 relatives that we mentioned, right? It's more of a serious thing, which you're mourning for him for a year, with all kinds of things, all kinds of customs, right? The most severe is the first day, and then the 7 days, right, is less severe but quite severe, and then you got the month, right, 30 days, and you got the whole year, right? There's also things like that. So when it comes to your rabbi, we don't go that far, right? Like we do for the relatives. Okay, so anyway, right, that's a story there. So yeah. So he says that what she made dependent. What does that mean? The tearing of other with avelut, one depends on the other. Right, and also that which he said, right, that his punishment is death by hand of heaven. Perek elu megalachin, right? It's over there in the Mod Katan. And this perek, by the way, you're allowed to learn on Tisha B'Av, because it's all like sad things over there. Like either it's excommunication or mourning, right, things like that. So yeah, you can learn that perek if you want to learn some Gemara on Tisha B'Av. Or you can do the other parak, right, which is in Gittin, about the Churban, about the destruction. Okay, so either way, right, you're good. Amar Avta Khalifa. So says this Rabbi Baravimi over there in Gemara, Amar Shmuel, name is Shmuel, Avel shelo para veshelo piren chayav mita. So it says, right, a person, a mourner, who, right, didn't let his hair grow, or didn't, what do you call it? Pirem means to cover his head, right? To cover his head. Chayav mita is liable to death. Shenimar, as it says in the pasuk, Vaikra rashechem al tifreu vigdechem lo tifromo. Right. So it tells you not to do that because over there they were not obligated to mourn. You see from there in general, though, that mourning involves these things. The lo tamutu, and you shouldn't die. Ha acher shelo para. But it says if you're talking about somebody else, the shelo pirem, right? He didn't do these things. Chayav mita, he's liable to death. V'katav Rambam, says the Rambam, the kriya the rabbanan he. Oh, so he says, right, the tearing your clothing is only rabbinical. So, right, obviously, when you hear that, you have to ask, right, if it's only rabbinical, how is it that he's liable to death, right? What he's liable to death on something like that? Right, so the kara asmachta b'almahi. So this verse is just a support, right? Asmachta. It's not really a real source. Right? Umita zo shamu hu kenyan haover al divrei chachamim. So he explains it, right? He answers my question, the Ramban. So he says here, right? What are we talking about? How does it say that he's liable to death? So that comes from the Gemara, right? I've already mentioned this several times. There's Gemara, Masechet Brachot, and also in Eruvin, that a person who transgresses the words of the rabbis is liable to death from heaven, right? So it's included in that grouping. That's why he's liable to death. Not because of this particular sin, but any sin which he does, transgressing the words of the rabbis. כתב סמ"ק, מי שמת לו מת צריך לקרוא קודם שיסתום פני המת. Oh. So he says, right, that says the Samak. The question now is like this, right? When do you do it? When a person, right, has to make a tear, when does he do it? So says the Samak, he has to do it before the burial is finished, right? In other words, once they cover, once they cover the dead, with deceased, with the coffin, whatever it is, right? The seal, they seal his burial, they seal his grave. Until that point, right, he should do the tear. So meaning what? If he waits till afterwards, it's already too late, as if, it's not, already not the proper time. But the truth is, that nowadays a lot of people do it, when they hear about it, right away. Or some people do it, as we said, right, during the burial. When they're burying the dead, that's when they do it. There's different customs, about when to do it. But this seems to be like, according to this Samak, it's like the last moment, you can do that before they seal up his grave. So says it too, right? That you have to tear when you're standing. It's over there in the Gemara there. Moed Katan. He brings that from what it says. Right? That Eov got up and he tore his jacket, whatever it was. So the Gemara asks, right? Maybe that was something personal that he did. Maybe it was an obligation. Because if you don't say it like that, right? He also shaved his head, right? Whatever. He gore his head, whatever it was. Right? He gored his head. Whatever it was. Anyway, right? You're not obligated to do that. And also, right, it says that the King David, he got up and tore his clothing, right? When his child died. So is that what she says, right? That if he did it sitting, says the Rabbi, he fulfills obligation b'diavad. Sham amemor kara al bar beret. So it says over there in the Gemara, same Gemara, that amemor, this rabbi, right, he tore on his grandson. Oh, interesting. Ata bare kara be'apeh, right? So then his son came and tore in front of him. Itkar de meyoshev kara. So then he remembered that he did it sitting, Kam kara me'omed, and then he did it again standing, right? So he did it again. So, as if like it didn't work the first time, so he didn't fulfill his obligation. Katav Rosh, says the Rosh regarding that. Zeleshono, Katav Rabad, says the Rabad regarding this. Even though the Chatchila we require that you should do the tearing, right? The standing, Minaland, right? The B'diabad lo yatsa. How do we know that B'diabad he didn't fulfill obligation? Miyoshev, sitting, right? V'tiretz, v'nitana, since it teaches, he answers that since it teaches Eov, regarding Eov, David and David, enami ikal memar. Also, we can say that the memor achamir nafshe adkan. We can say, right, this rabbi who did it again, he was just being machmir, but really the truth is he wasn't obligated to do that. He wasn't obligated to do it again, even if he did it sitting. So he says, adkan lashon rabad. This language of rabad. That's also the Rif, right? Seems to say like that. So there, she'im kara meyoshev, he holds that if he tore when he was sitting, yatsa, he fulfills obligation. Midei shmit uvda de amemor. Since he left out this story about amemor, v'harigiat katav. This rabbi wrote, she'im kara meyoshev lo yatsa. He says no. If he tore when he was sitting, he didn't fulfill obligation. So therefore, he should do it again, make another tear, standing. Also, the Rambam sees like that. That's halakha, he says. That's the way he paskins. So it says he comes out from the Gemara like that. So it says also the Rambam seems to say like that. Right? That what? That he didn't fulfill his obligation if he did it sitting, right? Because it says in the Rambam, and kriya ela me'omed, right? That tearing is only standing. Mashma dechol shena, so implies that whatever you don't have standing, me'omed ena kriya, that's not even called tearing anymore, right? So therefore, the Rambam also seems to disqualify even b'diabad, right, to do it sitting. Also, this rabbi says like that. ומתוך לשון הראש שהעתקתי יתברר לך שהרב"ד לא פשיטא ליצר. And also it says that which I brought you from the Rosh, regarding the Ravad, even he wasn't sure that he, fulfills obligations. Like the Rabbeinu says, the Sfuke Mesapekale, he had a doubt about that. Because he gave two answers over there. And according to one answer, he did fulfill obligation. But the other one not. The Gamma Rif Efshar the Svirale. So it seems like also the Rif, it seems like he holds that Lo Yatsa, he didn't fulfill obligation. The Hadi Shmit of the memo. So then why did he leave out the story about memo? La Mishum, not because the Lo Svirale Hachi, not because he doesn't hold like that. Ela Mishum the Lo Istrichale, because it doesn't need to tell you. In other words, it's obvious. Ela Dechevan de Aminan Tzarich Likroa Meomed. Why? Because since it says, right, that you have to do it standing, and we bring it from a verse in the Bible. So therefore, it implies that it's even b'diabad. It's going to be a problem. Afilu b'diabad. So he says. So what's halacha? Right, we have to see a big machloket over here. So what's halacha? Since all these rabbis hold the lo yatsa, he didn't fulfill his obligation, right? And also, right, from this Gemara, it implies that this rabbi was stringent, because of the halacha. Could be also the Rif holds like that. Therefore, he says, therefore, we hold that he didn't fulfill his obligation. So therefore, right, Maran Paskins over here, that if he tore sitting, he did not fulfill his obligation. Okay, very good. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. So says Shulchan Aruch. Misha bet omed, right? Somebody who died, right? Somebody and this is one of the relatives that a person has to mourn for them, right? He has to make a tear for him, right? Again, right? As we said, you have to do it standing. If he did it sitting, Lo Yatsa, he didn't fulfill his obligations, right? So even though we saw that the Torah, right, says that he did, but we don't pass it like that. Therefore, he has to do it again. Right? Okay. So then he brings over here, right, in the parentheses, probably it's the Ramah, I don't know, whoever it is. Anyway, it brings here, so it says, right, lechatchila, you should do the tear before they close up, seal up the grave, right? When they're burying him. Okay, very good. That's pretty clear. So we got like 9 more minutes here. Let's see what we can get done. So we'll go back to the tour and So I see over here the Tur also right concludes over here that if he did it sitting, he didn't fulfill his obligation. He says the name of his father, So therefore, right, it's obvious that's halacha. So now, right, the question is, where do you make the tear, right? Right? So it says you can do it pretty much like in any place in the front of you, right? But he says like around the collar, he says. But if he did it on the bottom, right? Lemata, or mitzadim, or the sides, right? Tachat batei yadayim, under like the sleeves. Lo yatzah, he didn't fulfill his obligation. He did not fulfill his obligation. Right? Nowadays, by the way, the custom is to do it by the heart, by the chest.
Isn't that what it says in Shulchan Aruch?
That what?
To tear it to the heart?
Yeah, but here you see, right? It seems like more like he's talking about the collar,
Right, but you tear it to the.
That's why I mentioned that.
Make it tear it to the heart.
This was Shulchan Aruch in a second, but right, I'm just saying, right, that here it seems like implying that it's on the collar or close to the collar, like around your neck, like somewhere. I'm sorry, you were saying something?
Nope, go on.
Okay, let's go on. So we'll get back to that in a second. So it says, says the Rambam, Shegam le'achorav lo yatsa. He says also in the back, he didn't fulfill his obligation. Right, so he also says this, right? That the Ramban, that's like in front of the collar, whatever. We have to see what this language means exactly, right? Not on the side. Right? Not on the side of the collar. Oh, yeah. So it seems like they're talking about the collar here, right? Interesting. Mikan or mikan, right? From one side or the other. So if you do it on the side of the collar, it's no good. It has to be in the front of the collar. V'in kara sham lo yatsa. So if he does it over there on the side, he didn't fulfill his obligation. The shi'ura, how much do you have to do? Right, tefach, one tefach, right? As we said, right? What's tefach? 8 centimeters. Let's see the Bet Yosef here. So says Bet Yosef, where's the source for this stuff? The soap Moed Katan, right? At the end of Moed Katan, Tanya, a Korea Lamata, if you tear right below, or on the sides, Lo Yatsa, he didn't fulfill his obligation. Katav Rambam, says Rambam, Berket, Umehechan Korea. So the Rambam asks, right? Okay, so where do you do the tear? Right, Milafanav, in front, he says. He doesn't use that word, that language of the collar, right? Interesting. If you do it behind you, he says, or on the sides, or lemata, or below, lo yatsa yedei chovat kriya. You didn't fulfill your obligation. By the way, what's the reason for that? Because it's not noticeable there. That's probably the reason. People don't see it readily. We want people to see it, like it should be right in front, front and center, as they say, right? So everybody can see you that you're mourning. Okay. Yeah. Then he brings the Ramban, right? The Ramban Katav, right? He brings the Rigiat, the Mata Beshulei Beged. So he means, what does it mean below? It means like on the bottom of your garments. We don't want that. Or minat stadin, or on the sides, then like under your sleeves, right? Lo yatsa, he didn't fulfill his obligation. So he says, he says we hold that the whole neck area, as we said, right, the collar, right, in front is good place to do the tearing, right? But if it's not, there in front of the collar, whatever, right? Mikan, that's called the side. That's the side. It doesn't full obligation. Masechet Avel, so it says in this Masechet Avel, En korim ela b'shtei hamoriot. We only, it says tear on the moriot. We'll see what that is, right? Hakorea min achefa or min hatzadin. If he does it on the sides, chefa, whatever that is, lo yatsa, he no full obligation. Perush te moriot. What is moriot? What does that mean? Hem imra, right? Shebifi achaluk, right? So we're talking about the collar, right? So he says, right? Mina yamin or veimra shebifi, right? Or from the side, or from his left, right? Right or right, left side. Sheosino tan kadesh lo yikreu atfirot. So they make that, the collar, that it shouldn't tear, right? The collar holds it together, so it shouldn't tear. The garment. The chifat chaluk mitzido, right? So what is the chifat? It's like from the side. I'll bet it's on the sleeve. Shalom mina small, not from the left. That's what it says in Katan. Kol sheno yachol lechaben imra bechifat chalukko lefichach hakorea min achifat chifa min hasadim mikan. So he says whoever is not able to do right, the collar, whatever, right? Of his cloak, whatever, right? If you do on the side, he says mikan from one side to the other, right, outside of the place of the right, the collar, in front of him, lo yatsa ad kanishna. He didn't fulfill obligation. Interesting. Okay, let's go on a little bit. It says Rambam. So it seems from the Ramban. So now he gets to that point, right? Where he talks about that, according to Ramban, he says it seems like we want the tear to be on the collar, like above, like around your neck. There, there. But not like the custom is, right? As we said, the custom is not like that, right? To do on the side of the beged, like the chest, right? As we said, right? Now the custom is to do on the chests. So now, right, there seems to be a discrepancy between the custom and the right, what it says in the Ramban. So the question is why, right? What happened over here? Katab Samak. So says the Samak, Tanya HaKorea Lemata or Minasadin, again, right? If he tears on the bottom or on the sides, lo yatsa, he didn't fulfill obligation. Rabbi Yehuda Omer yatsa. Rabbi Yehuda says he fulfills obligation. When you hear the halacha kirabanan, seems like the halacha is like the rabbis. Mitoch kach nired the korea b'shat yetziat neshama. So he says you'll see from there that a person who tears when the person actually dies, when the soul leaves his body, right? As we said, some people do it like that. And you shouldn't tear below or from the sides. But he says the custom is not to do below. So he says maybe the people are relying on the rest of the dead. Like it says in Rabbi Yehuda. So he says now the custom is, says Bet Yosef, that we do the tear above, like the rabbi. So we don't do it below, right? Okay, so let's see the language of the Shulchan Aruch, right? Because it's not really so clear. That what's the bottom line here? Okay, so he says Shulchan Aruch like this, right? That makom kriya makom bebet hatzavar lefanav, right? Yeah, so he says basically, right, again, like the Ramban, that we're talking about the collar. But if he did it behind you, right, or behind right? Or in the back, or the bottom, right? On the sides, lo yatsa. Interesting. So says the Rama, v'yesh shomrim sheyotzei in Korea b'shurei habeged. Some say you can fulfill obligation by tearing, below, like on the bottom of your garment. So he says now the custom is like that. He says, interesting. The Rama brings this down. Wow. Right. So the interesting thing is like this, right? That, as we said, nowadays the custom is to do it on the chest. So the question is, why don't we do the collar, right? Like it's supposed to be. Good question. Okay. So goes on. Ukeshekorin al sharametim says when we tear for other dead people. We don't mourn for them. But if there is relatives and we mourn for them, but you cannot do like that. It says you can't do it on the bottom. Even the Rama says, right? So therefore he says you got to do it on the collar, right? It seems to me, that perhaps I'm guessing right now, but probably what it is that those cloaks that they used to wear in the old days, they had like a big collar, and it used to go down like to the area of the chest, maybe. It was like something large. Like you find, these kinds of things, these kind of garments where they have like a big collar, something large there. So, that's what we do today. We do it around the chest. It could also be, by the way, another reason that it's hard to make the tear like that in our shirts because the collar is really hard to rip. It's like very strong. So it could be that's also another reason why they don't do it. Why they don't do it on the collar. But you know what? I'll get back to you guys on this. I'd like to research it a little bit more and to see what they say, the mefarshim, the commentaries, and then I can get back to you and give you some report. Report back to you, right? Next time. Doing that. Okay, so Hashem should give us the building of the Bet HaMikdash, right? Bezat Hashem, very soon. Instead of mourning, we should be celebrating these 21 days that we're usually mourning in 3 weeks, like it's going to be in the future. Amen, amen. So, Bezat Hashem, we'll see you, I guess, next week. I'm not sure if we're going to do class tomorrow night because we have to eat after the fast. So I'm not sure we'll have time, but if not, we'll see you on Sunday.
Thank you.
Chazak u'baruch.
Thank you.